Okay, so this is my cooking video for the bread if the dishwasher would stop beeping. And for mine, I got our textbook here, and I'm making the Light as a Dream hot rolls. And I'm gonna do the 4 different experiments with it. I'm not 100% sure which ones I'm gonna make yet. I'll figure it out while the dough's rising, because I just got back from vacation, so I'm kind of like all over the place. So let's just get this started and start cooking. Alrighty, the first thing we'll be doing is scalding some milk. We are scalding 1 3/4 cups of Great Value whole milk. I will show you the product label in just a second, but we are scalding the milk to help deactivate some of the proteins that prevent strong gluten formation. We will be scalding our milk on medium heat until nice and bubbly. Alrighty, this is what mine looked like right before I took it off the heat. We're almost done scalding here. I am constantly stirring it. That way a film does not form on the top, nor does it burn on the bottom. Next, I am going to add my 4 tablespoons of my meat and vegetable shortening. It's Great Value brand. I meant to take it off the heat right here because you're supposed to, but you will see I take it off the heat before adding the rest of the tablespoons. Alrighty, I'm going to show you the shortening I used for that step. And next we are going to use 1/2 of Great Value granulated sugar, as I'm showing you right here. And we are going to add it to our scalded milk mixture. This will allow the yeast to have something to feed on, as well as sweeten the bread. Alrighty, now we're going to fully incorporate both the shortening and the sugar into the scalded milk mixture. This is what mine ended up looking after I had mixed it all the way through. Next, we are going to work on the flour mixture. For this, we'll add 2 cups of our Pillsbury Best bread flour. As you see right there, we are using bread flour because it allows the glutens to make good sheets and to make a light yeast bread. We are also going to add 1.5 packets of yeast. I measured it out to 3 1/2 teaspoons of yeast. And then we are going to mix it on low for a few seconds. We will add the milk mixture now to our flour mixer to activate the yeast, and then we will leave it for 30 minutes to up to 2.5 hours to increase the flavor. Alrighty, so this is what it looks like when it came back. I waited about 35 minutes. We are going to now add another 2 cups of flour, the same flour as earlier, and we are only going to do it a 1/2 cup at a time. After those are all incorporated, we are going to let it sit for an hour. I did not have to check back in 30 minutes to punch it down. This is what it looked like after an hour. I lost the video of me punching it down. The reason why we punched down the dough is to release the heat in the middle and to relocate the yeast and break them apart into smaller clusters to get more air pockets. Alrighty, we're going to add the eggs next. I used grade A, Great Value large eggs. We added the first one and fully incorporated it. Now we are adding the second one and the egg yolk and fully incorporate it. We add the yolk to reduce staleness and increase longevity of the bread. Right now I am separating it from the whites and adding it in. We are also going to add 4 tablespoons of Great Value salted sweet cream butter. I just cut it according to the paper, and now we are going to incorporate that with the eggs. Alrighty, this is what we were looking at after it was fully incorporated. It's a lot less doughy and a lot more wet. What I'm going to do now is kind of shape it into a ball. That way we reduce the amount of gas exiting the dough while it's being refrigerated. And after I'm done with that, I placed saran wrap and placed it in the fridge for a couple hours to help increase the flavor. Alrighty. We are back. Now we are going to sift together 1 cup of the Pillsbury Best bread flour, and it is leveled off. And then we are going to add 2 teaspoons of Morton sea salt fine. And then we are going to add 1 teaspoon of our Great Value baking powder and a half a teaspoon of our Great Value baking soda. Then we are going to sift it into this bowl. This is the results I got. It's nice and fine. Alright, now we add this flour mixture to our dough that we have made. I am going to blend it in, and I cut out a lot of footage of me struggling, but I ended up ditching the mixer and towards the end and kind of kneading it in by hand. And then after, I switched to the dough hook for a little bit just to kind of smooth it out and help reinforce the grid of gluten and align them in the same direction. Alrighty, now that that is all incorporated, I am going to separate my dough into the individual rolls. We separated it in half and then in half again, and then the fourth got separated into a fifth. Right now I am twisting it and rounding it, that way the gases do not escape the roll as I cut the rest of them. Alrighty, I'm not going to make you watch every single one I cut, but I have decided what I needed to do for the 4 different experiments. I ended up doing 5, but the 5 I chose were baking 6 in a pan, then I chose baking some in a cupcake dish, and then I chose baking some in a normal pan, a freeform without butter, and then freeform on a baking stone. To continue on, I melted 6 tablespoons of butter for the glaze of the rolls. It was the same butter I used earlier, and then I added a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, the same salt as I used earlier, mixed it up, and started to glaze my bread. It's all except for the one that does not get glaze. I forgot to mention earlier, but as you can see, I cut the tops of the bread to allow steam to escape while baking, so you don't get a big hole under the crust. Alrighty, these are what it looked like after rising for an hour and a half. I preheated the oven to 350 because you're supposed to go under 25 degrees of the normal baking temperature because I'm not using stone. And then I also placed a boiling pot of water in the stove with them. Doing this stops the crust from forming too quickly and allowing the dough to reach its maximum size. These 6 will have to be cooked separately because when cooking with the pizza stone, you have to warm the oven up to 475, and then 5 minutes before you put them in, lower it down to 375. Alrighty, this is the action shot of them coming out of the oven. I did not get a photo of the brick ones coming out of the oven. Now I'm going to switch over to me right as I was tasting these and give you my honest opinion and where I believe I messed up. So I will say one thing I've noticed so far is they're dense, which means I don't think I used the dough hook for long enough. I did use it, but I don't think I used it for long enough because it doesn't really have, oh, let me try it. It's light, but it's still pretty, it's like, yeah, I didn't, Yeah, I did not use the dough hook enough because there's not very well created bubbles. It's still pretty dense. I don't know if that's the normal way it's supposed to be. I will definitely use the dough hook in the future. Another thing I noticed is that it doesn't have that much of a flavor, and I think that's because I didn't refrigerate it for long enough, because that helps build the flavor. So cupcake 10, This one was with butter, regular. Tastes very similar. I do like the shape of this one more. Dare say it might have, I think it has a better texture than this one. I think another thing is that they cooked too quickly for the yeast to do anything, because that cooking does that last final hurrah where it expands. These did not expand very much after they cooked. This one was without the butter mixture. I like these ones more. I like the crust on them better. No, this one has the butter. I liked it with the butter better. Crust is a lot more nice and flaky instead of dense and hard. The loaf seems to be my favorite texture of them all. Still pretty dense. Think I did something wrong. But it's very nice. This one's so far my favorite, the loaf. Also more of a loaf person anyways. These ones I burnt, the ones on the stone. They're closer to the cooking element, so when I put them in for the normal time, I checked on them with 10 minutes still left, and they were burnt. Still tastes good. Very similar to the other. It's got a nicer crust though on the bottom. Yeah, pretty much. That's all. Overall, I know I messed up and I know it wasn't perfect, but I do believe I learned a lot for the future and what I need to do the next time I cook bread. And I'm going to use all these principles I learned today.